You're listening to The Football Coaching Life, a podcast brought to you by Football Coaches Australia and Making Media, the podcast professionals. Today, we're honoured to have the current A-League Premiership coach, Championship coach, Paddy Kisnorbo. Welcome along, Paddy. It's a great honour to have you with us.
Thank you, Gary. It's a great pleasure being on the show.
We really appreciate it, mate. This podcast is around about coaching lives, although we'll touch on your playing career. But you had a great professional playing career. Started as a junior with Essendon City and Bulleen, and ended up, I think, breaking into the NSL with South Melbourne, and then across to Hearts in the Scottish Premier League and Leicester, Leeds in Divi 1 and the Championship, I think. And obviously 18 games for the Socceroos, games in the U teams, Oceania Championship. And I know that those Dicky Achilles tendons cost you a World Cup, as well as finishing the game with the old Socceroos against the Cobblers more recently. So we'll cover all that, mate, but really looking forward to having you on the show. So tell us, how's life as a championship winning coach that's got to enjoy it for a little while and then straight back into pre-season?
Yeah, look, I think it hasn't really sunk in, to be honest. I think pretty much after the sort of the final whistle, it was, you enjoy it for the day, but then you're sort of looking forward already for the next season. And I think I was overwhelmed with emotion because I was so tired on the night that I just wanted to go home and relax. So I haven't really, enjoyed sort of, the process of maybe, of what you do, winning a championship, because, I've just been, my time has been, with other things in terms of getting ready for this season, trying to strengthen the squad, trying to learn, trying to be dad at homeschooling. So there's so many other things that have come to play from that night until today. So maybe one day I'll sit back and have a look and enjoy it. But at the moment, it's rebuilding and, trying to improve again.
Yeah. It's you've had a great journey as a coach in terms of arriving back at Melbourne City, and maybe we'll get on to that a little bit later, because you've had a good range of assistant coaching roles and head coaching roles, and then into the position this year. But Pat, is it fair to say that until you take on the role as the head coach, you don't know what you don't know?
Exactly right. I think I had that bit of that sort of feeling when, I took over the W League, where, you sort of have to take full responsibility of everything, and everything, no matter how good or bad, at the end of the day, it stops with you. So, and then when you go to the A-League team, like you said, it's uncharted waters. So you're sort of going in, not knowing too much, and you pretty much, get thrown straight in the deep end. So it's either how quickly you adapt, but it's crazy. Like it's you got to learn, and it's crazy saying, but you learn by your mistakes. And I think that's what sort of makes you maybe mentally stronger, but it makes you aware of how big your job is, because at the end of the day, people want to see you win, but they don't see everything else. And I went through a tough time. I'm not going to lie. I went through a tough time where we lost 3 in a row. So it's, how do you come out of that? But it's learning on making mistakes and trying to improve and get better.
Yeah. I think all coaches, no matter where in their journey they are, everyone experiences that. Not everyone obviously is coaching at the pointy end of the A-League with a huge team. But I think when you lose 3 or 4 or 5 in a row as a coach, you learn a lot about your team, but you perhaps learn a lot more about yourself.
I think you do.
Yeah. You tell us what's going through your head when you're going through a period like that, right at the start of the season?
Look, I think, I'll speak for myself, but I think you question yourself, like, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing a good job? What am I getting wrong? The doubt, maybe, you start doubting yourself. So like all these little things started going through my head because I'd never experienced, this before. So I had to really like peel back everything and say, okay, look, did we have a good preseason? Yes. Are we maybe, getting in good position to score but not scoring? Okay, that's a tick. Yes, we just have to finish it off. So I brought it all back and started to watch and analyze, the good things, instead of focusing on the negative. And pretty much once I sort of peeled that back and focused on the good things, then I knew, okay, this is an area that I had to build. And whatever noise or whatever people were saying around me, I didn't let that bother me. I didn't let that affect me, because I can only control the controllables, which are, the team. I think when a new coach or, you sort of get mixed up in everything else where, I had to realize, well, I need to focus on the controllables and that's it. And that's what I did, really. And if we lost and we did it right in my way, okay, I could accept that, but as long as I knew that in myself. So when those 3 losses, in a row happened, again, my head was going to be crazy. I couldn't sleep, and I was saying, what am I doing wrong? Am I a good coach? Am I ready? I was 39 at the stage, and, you start thinking, there's so many other coaches out there that are probably saying, what does he know? And, all that sort of stuff where, I started to like say, okay, stop and then focus on the positives and just work towards that.
Yeah. Mate, I really like that, and thanks for sharing it, because that's not easy to share. Paddy, did you, as you're going through that, you've got obviously your wife, who's, I'm going to assume, one of your best mates. You can talk to her. Did you have anyone else, any other mentor, anyone else that you can help talk your way through that?
Yeah, look, I speak to Eric Mombats again a lot. I spoke to Ange Postecoglou. I remember Ange was saying, his first senior gig, he lost 6 in a row. So it's comforting when you hear, the great coaches, how they've gone up, but at the start, how they've, struggled a bit. So I thought, well, I'm sort of the same. I'm not any different. It's how am I going to get out of this, and how can I get better and grow? And I was speaking to someone. And they said exactly like, this will be the best part of your coaching, the best part of your learning. And at the time, you don't realize that. It's only now, hindsight, you think, wow, like maybe they're right. And I'm sure, like every other coach, you'll go through times in your life where it will be like that. But it's the way I can look at it and maybe get to the other side.
Yeah. I think it's fair to say that in life in general, and certainly in football and coaching, that those losses, it's times when it's really tough like that is where the learning happens. That is where you look and grow and say, okay, well, maybe we need to come at that a different way. So no, it's good and a wonderful outcome.
And also, like, people think, like coaching's all this, the bright lights, but as you would know, when you go through a difficult time, you've only got yourself really sometimes. So it's a lonely job. It's a lonely place sometimes to be, because everyone's just looking at you and the negatives. So it's one of those where you learn and you move on.
Yeah. Well, mate, and you certainly did move on. So congratulations. What a fantastic year for you personally, for the players, all the support crew, the club and the fans. Obviously, it's been a very, very long journey for them. So incredible that it all comes together and you had the year you did. And long may that continue.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, of course.
Paddy, let's go back a little bit to your playing days, you obviously played as a pro in the UK in arguably one of the toughest leagues in the world, in the Championship and League One. It's people doing a lot to get out of that, to get into the Premier League and those sorts of things. During your time as a pro, which coach or coaches had the most influence over you?
Look, I think everyone plays their part, whether good, bad, or indifferent. I think I learned a lot of Simon Grayson, where he created a team where it didn't matter who we played against. We thought we had this self-belief that we're never going to lose. Yeah. Where I learnt off Ian Holloway and Gary Megson, where work rate. If you cannot work, you can't play football. So I had Nigel Pearson on discipline. So you had so many coaches. I think when I look at it, the one of the best was probably Craig Levine. Yeah. A boy from Melbourne that goes to Hearts and thinking preseason is easy, and then the first day you've got triple sessions. I'm like, what? Like, what am I doing now? So it was a complete reality check, where that's what I think. I think sometimes us Australians, we think we're good here, and then we go over there and we're like, wow, like we're like maybe nowhere near it, Yeah. And he gave me that fantastic introduction of what it took to be a pro, and it was difficult, and it was really difficult. But I think if I didn't go through those hard times again, I wouldn't have had the career I had. Yeah. And then look, again, so many people along the way have played their part, but the ones that stick out to me are the ones I just mentioned. They're the ones specifically where I thought, wow, like, okay, I understand.
Yeah. So on that journey as a player, where were you on the journey when you thought, you know what, I think I like this coaching lark. I think this could be something I want to do. I'm going to start to get my badges and work towards a future as a coach. Was that a light bulb moment, or was that just something?
Yeah, it was. I was never good at school, so I always wanted to stay within the game. And back then, in what way, I didn't know at the time. So I know in England where every Wednesday they have a coaching course where you start your C, and you do it one day a week.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, instead of me having a day off, I might start to get to coach and learn. And that's what I did. And like, I started to really enjoy it. And it was crazy because in your coaching, you start as a player, you sort of analyze the different. And you think, oh, well, now I'm learning both ways as a player and sort of how the coach looks at it. So I just kept going with my badges, as you would say. And I did mine in England, in the UK. So, it just sort of kept going and going. And, I remember my wife said, listen, like it was on holidays. Well, you need to go back and do it. And I was like, well, I don't want to go back. I'm having a holiday. Well, she says, well, if you want to take it serious, these are the sacrifices.
Absolutely.
So, exactly. So, I went back and, did the coaching course and, just progressed really. And again, with football, I loved it. When I was playing in Melbourne, I used to go and watch the U team with the coaches after the season just to see how they did it. And so, I don't know, I just loved that coaching part. And when there's no pressure, it's fantastic, right? So, but then on the flip side, when it changes, you think, okay, it's a bit different to what I imagined. But I just enjoy it. And, it's great to see when, as you would know, when you work on something in training and it comes off in the game, you think, wow, what a special moment.
Yeah, that was it's
really
amazing.
rewarding.
I can remember as a player the first time that happened with me with Eric Worthington and up in Sydney. I was blown away. At that point, I can't remember. I was probably 23. I'd never worked with a coach that could put a session on in a practice session that could impact my behaviour and the teammates, and that would work and make a difference on the weekend. I was like, God, he's a witch doctor, this bloke. What's he up to? Yeah. So
it's crazy, like, and you see stuff with Guardiola when, he tells the players, don't worry, this is going to happen, and it actually happens. So it takes a special person for me that to get to that level. And there's not just Guardiola, there's so many coaches like that,
Yeah, no, it's great, mate. Paddy, how important was your transition at Melbourne City? Was fantastic. You finished as playing, and they offered you a role as an assistant with the W League team and the Youth League team. How important was that opportunity at the beginning, not in a head coaching role, but in a coaching role, for you to begin to learn your craft and start to work out what you were going to be like as a coach?
Yeah, I think it was really important. Look, I got given the under-20s job straight off the bat. So it was, again, I think what helped me is you got to communicate in a different way. Here you are as a senior, and now you got to communicate to 15, 16-year-olds to what you want. You can't expect them to know what you're doing in your brain. And it was translating that on the pitch. So, I thought it was fantastic where, I could learn to communicate possessions on that would teach the players. And it was all for me about teaching. I didn't worry about results for me. It was, if they can do A, B, and C, great. And sticking within a club, a game style, game model, and then learning the methodology as we went on. So I think that was really good at the start. As you said, I went on to do the girls, and then you're working with different athletes, you're working with females, and that's a whole different thing where females they're very intelligent, but the speed of the game is a bit slower. So I had to learn to slow the game down, show them the way we want it to be done in a game way, and then transition that on in a game. And again, they were great. Like that, they were great. But I think as I went on, it's a lot about football, but the man management and the female management, it's so much more important for me as you get higher than maybe I don't know the tactics. The tactics are big, but man management is probably the most important part of coaching, because you have so many different players that learn in so many different ways, and you got to get them all to connect for 90 minutes and only training.
That's right.
And you know how it is. Sometimes there's some tears, sometimes there's some fighting, but if you can manage the group the right way to get what you want, you're on the way, and that's what the females taught me. And communication, they like to communicate a lot. Feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. And then when I went to the men sort of assistant, it was okay. Now I'm back with men, so now I need to get my brain to speed up because men do it so quickly and things change so rapidly, and the picture changed so quickly that I had to really sort of jig my head and my brain to, okay, now it's quicker. And that was, again, doing the same management, training, designing trainings. So there was every step of the way from 20s to where I'm now. I learned so many different things. And then as a head coach, you try and put it all together.
Yeah. And that I was thinking through in looking at that pathway, it's almost like if you're going to try and find an ideal way for someone to commence their coaching journey within the one organisation, you've probably jagged it where you are, because for most people it just doesn't happen that way. You end up, you might change teams, but in most cases the changing the team often means changing the club as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, look, I think we had some change in the sort of the coaching arrangements, but when I was around, I wasn't sort of like, so if something happened in the first team, I was with the females, so it didn't sort of impact me. And it was only until when I got asked to join, that's when I joined. So I wasn't there through all the change. I was there at the club when the change of managers, but I wasn't in like positions with the first team manager. I was with the 20s or the females, So the only time I was the change was with Warren Joyce, and then obviously Eric brought someone else with him. So I had to convince Eric that I knew what he was doing and how to work, and that's how the relationship started. Through trust, through working hard and showing I'm on his level. If it wasn't like that, I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah, and that very, very much happens, doesn't it? And I'm sure you, as a player, you've seen that a new manager comes in, go most of the coaching staff, the support staff, and it's could be 6 or 8 people leaving and 6 or 8 new people come in. So very unusual. Paddy, it makes me think: is there a lot of people praised Eric for the way that he changed a whole bunch of stuff within the City Group? Is there a City Group way of coaching or playing the game, or
definitely playing the game? So we have our own game style, game model under the City style of football. So that's our identity. Now, I believe in it. Eric believes in it. So he was really the one that really introduced it to the group, and it takes time. Like it takes, 5-6 years.
Absolutely.
And you're forever learning. So he really introduced our identity in the City style. Now, my job was just to get that better and improve it again this year. But our style and our identity still remain the same. But he introduced a lot of things, which was great, and I'm trying to still continue that and trying to improve that.
Yeah,
that's great. I won't. Yeah, and I won't change it. And look, we all add our little sort of feel. Eric had his. I've got mine. But the game model doesn't change.
Yeah. Does that stuff just really involve the game model and the tactics? Does it become a cultural thing? Is it the way people behave in and around the club as well?
Yeah, it does. Like it just doesn't translate just to football. I think it's a group thing. But I'll talk on behalf of Melbourne City. Like, yeah, of course, behaviours, being respectful. All that sort of stuff, is the way that, we want to hold our club accountable and our players accountable for, because after football, there's actually a thing called life, that players sometimes don't realise. And when they finish their career, I want them to be good people, good individuals, good humans, humble, because football doesn't last forever. People don't realise that sometimes. So I'm trying to also create good human beings, humble people, no matter how long they last at the club, but, their attitude and being the right person, it lasts forever.
Yeah. How does that within the Melbourne City, does that roll down through into the young players and the academies? Because I think one of the criticisms can be that, a lot of the talented youngsters come through, they've got the great hairstyle and they've got the best boots going around, and the picture of Ronaldo or Messi on the fridge, and they think that they've arrived, and they have arrived at a place, but they certainly haven't finished their journey. So is that a key for the whole organisation?
Yeah, look, I think the respect thing, what I've known is all the young players go around and shake everyone's hand when they see them. Their attire, I can't really say I've seen, or what they're wearing and stuff, but I know that, we try to keep them as humble as we can. What kills us is obviously Nike and Adidas and all these dual-coloured boots. Just keep them black, so that will make our job so much easier. I think you can sort of understand where, we had heroes when we were growing up. We just need to sort of sometimes tone things down. And as again, everything evolves. But if we can keep some humility with our academy players, which at the moment they're very good, I think we're doing a good job.
Absolutely. It's a great model. So I've got a question to ask everyone about as people's coaching evolved over the journey. And, your journey as a coach isn't that long right now, but it's still a valid question. Has your coaching changed already? Has it evolved from where you thought it was going to be when you first stepped into a coaching role?
Yeah, I think it has. I think, if you don't evolve, you stay you stay still. So as we know in football, if you don't evolve, you don't progress. So of course I've evolved. I've looked into things that, I can improve on myself. I can improve the team, but the first thing I do is look at myself and see, what do I need to change? Because if I'm asking players to change, I need to ask myself, do I need to change first? And then that's how I build. So if I evolve as myself as a person and as coaching, I ask that of the players as well. And I have, and that's, again, through, speaking to a few people, reading a couple of books, again, making mistakes at training and analyzing. And so you're forever learning no matter what. But for me, the main thing is, being a good person. Forget the coach. If I could win as many titles as I want, but if I'm a bad person, it doesn't mean anything to me. I'd rather be a good person more than anything else.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot, mate. I like that a great deal. You again, in looking through in your time at Melbourne City, you've had Joe Monty. Oh, you started, I think, assisting with Joe Palazzidis, old mate of mine, Pala. Joe Montemuro's been through there. John Van Schip, Eric, obviously, I'm assuming had a great impact. There's an awful lot of wisdom in that group. Have you had a coaching mentor over the journey, or someone that you can really bounce ideas off and learn from?
At the moment, it's Eric.
Yeah.
Again, we speak a lot and we do a lot of homework together, just to see, if this looks okay, or can I do something here? And it's vice versa. He asked me the same thing. So in the coaching sense, I speak to Eric quite a lot, like something like this, where we can share screens and we can share certain sort of tactical things or practices, and to see if they're good, or can I do better, or are there any mistakes, or did you see anything that I didn't see? And Eric is the harshest critic. Like, I'm not going to lie, he might look all nice and dressed, but let me tell you, he doesn't mix his words. So he's very honest, and if he doesn't like something, he'll tell you. So it's great to have someone that I could do that, and we're great friends. So it's crazy how this relationship works, but it works so well. So he's the one that my go-to guy that we can learn off each other. And Manchester also have a sort of a team coach that coaches the coaches, and it's his name's Kerry. So Kerry does a lot of work with coaches, and sometimes Kerry sends me homework on Man City games on analyze this and what you think. And it's great to test my brain, because I'm either totally wrong or I'm on the mark. So you're forever learning in different ways, and that's how I test myself.
Yeah, I like that. Again, I think early on here, you said it can be a very lonely place being a head coach, particularly in senior football. So having that opportunity to bounce ideas and continue your learning within that safe environment is a nice place to do it, isn't it? Yeah. How about outside of football, Paddy? You're a Melbourne boy, obviously. Melbourne, growing up, I'm sure you kicked the footy around, bowled a ball, and slogged one over the fence, those sorts of things. Have coaches from other sports, have you looked anywhere else to see how people are coaching players and leading men and women? Or?
I think it's more on the I've been to I went to Melbourne a couple of years back with Simon Goodwin, just to see how their culture is at the club, and just have a look at his man management and what they do. I haven't really spent an awful lot of time with other coaches from other codes, to be perfectly honest with you. But I have someone outside the club that I speak to a lot. And look, he's fantastic. He gives the perspective of football's just a game, and it's not life.
Yeah.
So speak to him. He's really good. He's really good. And it's someone that's not involved in football. He has no idea about football. He's just learned through me. So it's good to have someone that sort of not interested in the game, but interested in you and how you develop as a person and as a coach.
Yeah. In that development, I think one of the other things that happens as you grow into the role is you go in as an assistant coaching role, and you're running around putting out cones and gathering up the bibs and doing whatever needs to be done, and then you progress into a head coaching role, and it's a lot more focused around the players and how we're going to play, and then you step up into an A-League head coaching role, and all of a sudden you're not just managing or leading players, you're now leading a group of off-field staff that in some clubs can be as big or bigger than the playing group. How have you found that? How has that worked out for you?
Yeah, look, I think in that way, I think it was a bit easier for me because a lot of these people were here when I was playing, so we already had a relationship. So that I think that was easy for me because they knew how sort of the club identity was. They know how I am as a person, even though we hadn't worked together until sort of last season. But it was easy. They're good. We sort of, again, we're always on. We always not agree with each other, but we're on the same wavelength. If we're in two different ways, then you're always butting heads. You got a problem. But we come in the middle and say, okay, let's meet this way and adapt, and okay, we go ahead with that. But look, they know sort of the way that the club is. They know the culture of the club. That they know the people. I've known them for years and years. So that was an easy one for me. It didn't really need to change an awful lot.
Yeah. And then the third part of that is we're leading players, we're working with the players, we've got a team of people, and in your current position, you now got to manage up. There's a CEO, there's a board, there's a city group to report through. How have you found that?
Yeah, really good. Again, Brad, the CEO, was here before I was. Yeah. So I'd seen him around as a player. So, even though the titles change, the people haven't changed, which is great.
Yeah.
So it's really easy. Again, there's continuity within the club, even though we've had change of coaches and maybe players. Around it, generally, we've had a good continuity within the club.
Yeah. Why do you do it? Why do you coach?
I think because I love the game. I think someone asked me about that the other day, and what the satisfaction I get when I see 4 of our players playing the Olympics. Hopefully, one day you have a part to play in a player's career where they make it big in a top European team. That's the satisfaction I get. That's why I love it. Yeah. I want to, like a bit like yourself, we're football lovers. We want this game to be the biggest game in Australia. And I'm the same. So if I can play my part in doing that, and trying to, help these players' careers in some way be positive, that's so much, and that's why I do it. Yeah, I don't do it for any reason else.
Yeah, and it beats having a real job as well, doesn't it?
Well, people don't think a real job's 9 to 5. Right? A coach there's no such thing as hours. So it's difficult.
Yeah, it's also one of the things that used to intrigue me when I was at Melbourne Victory was people sort of think, okay, well, you've got a short season and the longest preseason in the history of the universe. Obviously, you guys don't do an awful lot during that time. And the way it works out, it can actually be just, if not more busy during those times. That was my findings anyway, yeah.
Definitely. I think you do more in preseason than the season because you go game to game. Where here, it's a continuous sort of session upon session upon session. So it's completely different.
Ralph, actually, before you joined us, Ralph and I were talking about this, the length of the pre-season, and I'm just wondering how you've approached it. Obviously, you've come off a wonderful season. You couldn't have done any better. You've got to, I assume, finalise some recruiting and do a few bits and pieces. How do you make sure that the players are coming back? And they're not still training like they just won the championship. They're now like, okay, well, that's good. You've got the medal. Now we're looking to get another one.
So obviously we have meetings before they leave, and we have sort of areas where they must come back in a certain way, and if they don't meet that criteria, they'll be in trouble. And they'll be doing an extra session. But B, it lets the team down, and I let them know that, the past is the past. You got to concentrate now. Also, I brought the players in early because I can. So if the people they try and get in, I can, right? So, just so they understood that. The way we need to approach it this season, it's no one's gonna say, okay, yeah, he's 3 points, no chance. And we know the league gets harder and harder. There's some great coaches around and some great teams. So talk about evolving in that. That's what you need to do. So these are little things that I implemented during the off season. I brought the players in off season one by one. Come on, let's have breakfast. I need to talk to you about A, B, and C. So they knew that I was always thinking, and I had to always be ready to be ready to, like I say, start a pre-season.
Yeah.
So these are little things that I did to make them understand that, this is very important, but this pre-season is ultra important. It's the base of everything to improve.
Yeah. No, good on you, mate. Let's change back a little bit and come back to you again. Unfortunately, I'm going to call them the old fart Socceroos here in Melbourne. Have been playing the Copperoos to raise money for a charity for a couple of one of the coppers that was unfortunately killed many years ago now. And we're about 20 minutes in, and you were doing a great job, making a bit of a comeback as a player, and did this crazy little turn in the corner, and all of a sudden we hear this great snap, and you've snapped your Achilles, which is devastating in that circumstance because you're I don't know, there was probably 4 or 5 games to go in the season, and you're away. But that wasn't the worst one. I'm guessing the first one, which I think you might have done at Millwall back in 2010, cost you a trip to the World Cup in South Africa. That's only one of the ways that players get impacted. But how important has it been on your journey to develop resilience, firstly as a player, and then as a coach?
Yeah, look, I think you sort of look. I think you build that as a 19-year-old going to Scotland on his own with no family, living in a house with nobody, learning to cook, clean on their own and make it to training on their own. I think it starts from early on, because it's very difficult, leaving your family and going on your own to some foreign place where you have no idea. So that's the start. I think then when you start including injuries, that's even different because, as you know, injuries could be, unfortunately, they could be career ending. We can't stop that. But, I think when you get injured, you realize that there's someone else to take your spot. And if you don't get back, okay, that person takes his opportunity. But if you do, you've got to be ready to fight and take that spot back.
Yeah.
And, it's very easy to say, oh, I'm injured, I can't. That's the easiest thing to do, to quit. But I wasn't brought up like that. So, and I've never had it easy. And the only way that I knew was to fight back and, to give it my best through life, whatever. And I think that translates to a coaching career as well, because as you know, when you play, you had so many up and downs, like so many. And it's sort of, it hardens you up and makes you aware of those certain situations when you face them again as a coach.
Yeah.
And it's different as a coach as well, that feeling, because as a coach, as a player, you can't get sacked as a player. You've got a contract.
Yeah.
Unless you're in your last year. Whereas a coach, they can replace you as soon as they want.
Yeah.
That's the difference. That's another thing that you learn as a coach when you're losing, that, okay, like it's either, you've knuckled down and you try your best, or you give up and you get sacked or you walk away.
Yeah.
So it teaches you two different ways as a player and as a coach. Same outcome. It's the same outcome. But I think it's as a coach, it's more ruthless. And as you see in England, they change coaches like I change a pair of boots, every 12 games. Like it's crazy. So you can never ever rest on your laurels or ever think, okay, this is easy, or the coaches are we fight to the end, and if it's not good enough, oh well, like at least you tried.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so tough, isn't it? Particularly for coaches, because as we said back at the start of this conversation, it's when you're losing as a coach that you're probably learning the most.
Yeah.
But if you lose too often, learn a lot, you might have a job. The application of the learning might be in a new job at a new club. Yeah. It's part of the challenge and the joy of being a coach at the top level of football.
And also, I think the hardest thing is that as a player, when you're injured, everything's in your own hands. As a coach, it's not in your hands. It's in other individuals.
Yeah.
So if those individuals decide one day, they're a bit tired and that, and something happens bad, you're the one that suffers, not them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a wise man once said, if you're a coach and you lose your job, you've got your wife and your lawyer and your car, and that's about it for getting around. It's tough.
Yep, yes.
And I think that's part of what Football Coaches Australia has been working hard to do, and that's find some standards there that we can get into the governance of the game here in Australia, and you're never going to stop it happening, but at least make sure that coaches get paid out what they're entitled within the right sort of time frames. But
of course, because look, no one goes out there to lose. No one. That's
absolutely.
But unfortunately, sometimes that's reality.
Yeah, yeah. Paddy, you've this question seems a little bit redundant because I'm about to ask you what have been some of your most enjoyable moments, and you just won the premiership and the championship. But I'm going to ask you anyway. So, as a coach so far, what have been some of your most enjoyable moments?
I think sort of last season, that day one of pre-season, where actually I knew this was my first day as a head coach. It was fantastic to know that your hard work and all your sacrifices, are ready for that day. And the excitement, the unknown, about, how you're going to go. I thought that was fantastic. That's what I really loved, seeing, as I said before, young players develop. I think that's really exciting for me. Seeing them again, we watched them on the Olympics, seeing them play against the best kids in the world at their age. And some of them, I think our players did pretty okay, and
Absolutely.
we can hold our own. We're just, 48 hours away and, not in a country where football is number one sport, but we can hold our own.
Yeah.
And that's great, And I think also, I know it's cliche, but, when obviously you win the titles, but, seeing, my mum's face, my kid's face, my wife's face, at the end, that they've been through the journey with you. It's great to see. It's like those Olympians when you see their families watching them on TV.
Yeah.
One day I might be that dad to my kids. But it was such a proud moment just to sit back and see my family like that. It was really nice.
Yeah. I got to see him scurrying after you with that ruptured Achilles tendon. Middle part, they handled all that pretty well, but I'm sure that was a lot more enjoyable for them. So based on what you said so far, I think I know the answers to this question as well, but what does success look like for you right now?
I think success for me is the way I am as a person, and the way I portray myself to, everyone at the club, the players, the staff, the admin staff, and the football community. For me, that's number one, because I think it's so important. In the day, football is a job, and it could be long, it could be short. It's not life. But if I'm a good person to someone like yourself, and that means so much more to me than Paddy Kisnorbo as a coach. It's not real. Me as a person is real, and that's for me a really important trait that that I want to have.
Good on you, Paddy. You're a great human being.
Thank you.
On the downhill run here, couple to go. What would be your biggest mistake, biggest learning so far?
I think when we went through that stage, it was doubt. I started to doubt myself, not on the training pitch, but just when I was at home, where, I knew what I was doing, it works.
Yeah.
But I started to doubt to say, does it work, or am I the right person for this job? Am I too young? That was sort of the where I started to think in when things were not so great.
Yeah.
Because I had to look at myself, I had to reflect, and everyone blames you. So that was the thing. I started to doubt in myself, my ability to be a football coach and manager, where once I distanced that and didn't worry about the noise, I just looked straight ahead. Yeah.
Good on you. Following on from that a little bit, the modern athlete, the modern footballer is looked at by most football clubs now in a lot more holistic way. So not only their physical well-being is important, but their mental well-being as well. I think we've seen during the Olympic Games, examples of athletes just hitting the wall mentally. And so there's a great focus on mental health of athletes. But I think it's become evident to me since I've been a part of Football Coaching Australia that mental health of coaches is something that's been very, very, very rarely spoken about. But as we've discussed, it can be a very, very lonely place. What are your thoughts on that? And is the work environment you're currently in, have you got someone that you can chat about that sort of stuff with as well? Yeah,
look, so we have something in place at the club that if we needed to, myself or the players needed to speak to, we can. I have someone that I speak to outside of work, just to touch base and speak to them about a few things. But mentally, it's all mental for me. It's all mental because as you see, these athletes are under so much pressure to perform at the highest level that sometimes it's all too much.
Yeah.
And I think if we could have, again, our club's good at it, but if we can have avenues where people could reach out, I think it helps because it's a matter of time that someone's going to crack. But if you speak about it, then you might stop that person from cracking just to get off their chest. Yeah, everyone has a cracking point. If you can stop that from happening, maybe that helps, and maybe you can move forward, and it's not too late. So there's been a lot of players, I think, back in the day when I was younger that, mentally they suffered, but it wasn't really known as much.
Yeah.
Where these days it's a big thing. So if we have programs around this and educate everyone, I think it helps.
Yeah. No, I like that too, mate. Okay, final question for the day.
Yeah.
If there was one piece of wisdom that you could offer young coaches on the middle of the journey, coaches towards the end of the journey, one piece of wisdom about coaching, what would that be?
I think you got to be true to yourself. And do your apprenticeship. Don't be in a rush to to become a head coach after retiring or having one job. You need to learn. You need to understand. You see, you need to go through some bad things to come up good on the other side. So don't be in a rush. To be head coach. Even though in hindsight I say that, but before I was one of those people. But if your time's right, your time will be right. It will happen. But I think you need to really do your apprenticeship and understand the full way of a coach's life, because it's not just putting 11 players on the pitch. It involves everything. At the end of the day, the coach runs the whole club, and that's how I see it. So don't be in a rush. Learn as much information as you can. Speak to as many people as you can. Try things in training. And one day, hopefully everyone gets a chance, no matter what level they are, to fulfill their dream and be a head coach somewhere.
Yeah. Thanks, Paddy. I reckon that's a great place to finish it. And it's wonderful that after winning a premiership and a championship, the City Group have lashed out on that wonderful roller door behind you at your new training complex at Casey Fields.
Well, they spent $100 million on Grealish, so we've got to sort of take some step back somehow.
Good on you, Paddy. Really, really appreciate you joining us today. It's been fantastic.
All right.
You're listening to The Football Coaching Life, a podcast brought to you by Football Coaches Australia and Making Media the Podcast Professionals. If you've enjoyed today's conversation with Paddy, then please go to footballcoachesoz.org.au, buy a membership, renew a membership, or just find out about our organisation. Have a wonderful day.